example, panliligaw. Very good example, panliligaw. O question, ang panliligaw dapat ba pinagpaplanuhan? Yes or no? Yes! Lalo na kung gustong-gusto mo, kung type na type mo yung liligawan mo. Hindi naman bigla ka na lang lalapit dun sa liligawan, bigla mo sasabihin, "Miss, I love you." O bongga kang hayop ka. Busted ka ba kaagad nun? Yes or no? Yes. So ang pag-nurses, ang panliligaw, dapat pinagpaplanuhan yan. And the first questioners that you need to ask yourself is the question, what? What action is necessary? Ano ang kailangan niyong gawin? Ano ba ang kailangan mong gawin para mapansin ka ng liligawan mo? Nurses, anong gagawin mo? Ikaw ba'y maliligo na araw-araw? Na hindi mo siya masyadong ginagawa ngayon, malamig ang tubig, yan. O ikaw ba'y nurses, magpapabango ka ba? Magbibihis ka ba? Poporma ka ba? So that is the question, what? Another question, nurse, is the question, where? Where will it take place? Saan ka manliligaw? O question, saan ka dapat manligaw, nurses? Ikaw ba'y aakyat sa bahay nila? O aabangan mo ba siya sa kanto nila? Aabangan mo ba siya sa sakay ng tricycle? Aabangan mo ba siya sa babaan ng bus? Aabangan mo ba siya sa gate ng school? Aabangan mo ba siya, nurses, sa kanto na? In short, para ka lang hold-upper. Nagkakaintindihan ba? But question, is that the question where? Yes or no? Yes! Another question, owners, is the question when? Kailan ka manliligaw? O question, naniniwala ba kayo na pagdating sa panliligaw, meron tayong tinatawag na good and bad timing? Yes. Sige, tanungin ko kayo. Kailan ka dapat manligaw sa babae? Pag good mood o bad mood ang babae? O kailan ka dapat manligaw sa babae? Pag good mood o bad mood ang babae? Good mood, bakit? Dahil kung bad mood yan, automatic busted ka kaagad. Do you agree, yes or no? Yes. The next question now is, paano mo malalaman? Nurses, kung good mood ang babae, kailan ka dapat manligaw? Ovulation o menstruation? Oh, seryosong tanong to. Seryosong tanong. Kailan good mood ang babae? Ovulation o menstruation? Ovulation. Why? Sige, tanungin ko kayo. Hormones po ba ang nagre-regulate ng mood mo? Yes. Ang tanong ko ngayon, kailan peak ang hormones ng babae? Ovulation o menstruation? Ovulation. Kaya nga tingnan mo, pansinin mo, pag ang babae may menstruation, madalas mainit ang ulo. Do you agree? Yes. So kailan ka ngayon dapat manligaw? Ovulation o menstruation? Ovulation. Now, my next question now is, paano mo ngayon malalaman kung yung liligawan mo nag-ovulate o nagme-menstruate? Alam ka namang tanungin mo, "Hey, are you ovulating?" Hayop ka, masasambal ka na, busted ka pa. O question, paano mo ngayon malalaman, nurse, kung yung liligawan mo nag-ovulate o nagme-menstruate? Oh, tip in the board. Anong temperature? Puwede mo ba sabihin sa liligawan mo, "Patingin nga ng temperature mo." Sasabunutan kita diyan. Oh, paano mo ngayon malalaman, nurse, kung yung liligawan mo nag-o-ovulate o nagme-menstruate? O tip, boys, tip, para malaman mo 'pag kung nag-o-ovulate o nagme-menstruate yung liligawan mo, abangan mo ang aso niya. Oo, aso! Ano ba 'yan, aso lang 'di ba alam, aso yung aw-aw-aw, aso. Buwisit ka. O nurses, abangan mo yung aso niya habang yung aso niya nagkakalkal ng basura. O bakit? Sige, tanungin kita. Ano ang paboritong kalkalin ng aso sa basurahan? Anong paboritong kalkalin ng aso sa basurahan? Diaper, napkin, o question, tuwing umaga, yan ba yung madalas nakakalat sa kalsada, yes or no? Yes. So in short, kung ang aso niya may dalang whisper with wings, o beshi, nurses, nurses, ovulating o menstruating? Menstruating. Good mood o bad mood? Bad mood. Manliligaw o hindi? Hindi. Pero kung ang aso niya walang dalang whisper with wings, question, ovulating o menstruating? Ovulating. Good mood o bad mood? Good mood. Manliligaw o hindi? Manliligaw. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So that is the question, when. Another question now, nurse, is the question who? Who will do it? Sino ang gagawa? So sino ba dapat ang manligaw, nurse? Sino ba dapat ang manligaw? Ikaw ba mismo o kukuha ka ng tulay? Ako, besh, ang suggestion ko, wag na wag kang kukuha ng tulay. Bakit? Dahil kasi madalas, kung sino ang tulay, yun ang nakakatuluyan. Do you agree, yes or no? Do you agree? Yes! Bakit? Ganito kasi storya yan, mga beshi. So si lalaki, nangihiyang manligaw kay babae. Anong ginawa? Nilapitan ng kaibigan, nilapitan ng barkada, nilapitan si kumpare. Anong sabi? Pre, tulungan mo naman ako, pre. Kasi talaga, pre, nahihiya talaga ako. Pagkaharap ko na, pre, hindi ako makapagsalita. Umuurong yung dila ko, pre, nauutal ako. Pre, baka naman pwedeng ikaw na lang magbigay itong flowers and chocolates. Yan. Gusto niya chocolates, wala kang pakialam. Sabi niya, pre, pakibigay na lang, pre. Pakisabi niya lang, pre, I love you. Ayan. So nurses, yung nurses tulay, pumunta ngayon sa liligawan mo, dala ang flowers and chocolates. Anong sabi? Flowers and chocolates for you. I love you. O sinong sinagot? E di yung tulay. Do you agree? Yes or no? Do you agree? Yes. So ulitin natin. So nurses, sino dapat naman ligaw? Ikaw o yung tulay? Ikaw. And the last question now, nurse, is the question how? Paano ka manliligaw, nurse? O paano ka manliligaw? Ikaw ba'y manghaharana? Uso pa ba ang harana? Charot! O nurses, o ikaw ba'y magpapadala ka ba ng love letters? Papadala ka ba ng flowers? Magpapadala ka ba ng chocolates? O ikaw ba'y nurses, magpo-post ka ba sa IG? Itatag mo ba sa FB? O ikaw ba'y gagawa ka ba ng TikTok? O buwisit yan, lahat na lang ginawa mo. So that is the question, how? Nagkakaintindihan ba? So ulitin natin, nurses, what are the questions, nurses, in the planning formula? This includes the questions what, where, when, who, and how. Ano lang ang point natin dito? Point natin dito, basta it involves planning, the planning formula will always very useful. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Maliwanag? Now, sige. So you have already, nurses. Again, nurses, analyze your SWOT. You have already, nurses, answered the questions in the planning formula. Ang tanong ko ngayon, are you done with planning? Are you done with planning? Not yet. Not yet. Anong gusto kong tandaan? Always remember, nurse. Always remember, nurses, that for you to be able to create a good plan, for you to be ensured that you have a good plan, for you to be assured that you're doing the right thing, then you have to use, nurse, the different tools in planning. You have to use the different tools in planning. In some books, this is what we call as the hierarchy of planning. In some books, this is what we call as the hierarchy of planning. Pag sinabi nating hierarchy, ibig sabihin, dapat po ba dito sunod-sunod? Yes. So meaning, this will be your guide, nurses, in order for you to create a good plan. And what are the different tools in planning? Number one, nurse, you have the mission and vision. Number one, you have the mission and vision. Question now is there a difference between mission and vision? Yes or no? Yes. O sige, matanong ko po kayo. Sino po sa inyo dito ang kabisado at ang mission at vision ng school nila? Kabisado? Shit, natatawa sa akin. Sino po nakabasa? Nakabasa? Wala pa rin. Nadaanan! Wisit, nadaanan man lang. Mga hayop kayo. Mas maraming nakadaan lang. Nanggigigil ako sa iyo. O question, is there now a difference, nurse, between mission and vision? Yes or no? Yes. So what's now the difference? Let's start, nurses, with mission. The question is, what is mission? Pag sinabi nating mission, nurse, mission is the reason for existence. Again, mission is the reason for existence. This is the reason for existence. Again, nurses, ibig sabihin, ito bang dahilan kung bakit mo tinayo ang isang organization? Yes, ito bang dahilan kung bakit ka gumawa ng isang institution? Yes. So again, ano ang tatandaan mo kay mission? Anong gusto kong tandaan mo kay mission? Again, anong tatandaan kay mission? Reason. Again, anong tatandaan kay mission? Anong tatandaan kay mission? Reason. Ulitin natin. Nurses, a very good example. Tingin sa akin na. Very good example is the mission statement of Quirino Memorial Medical Center, or also known as the QMMC. QMMC was popularly known before as the Labor Hospital. Ito yung kilala dati na tinatawag na Labor Hospital. O makinig! Utang na loob, Besha. Pag sinabi ko pong labor hospital, hindi po ibig sabihin nito, ito pong hospital ng mga nagle-labor. Hayop ka! So pagtapos ng labor, mga anak ka na, lipat na po kayo ng ospital kasi hanggang labor lang kami. Hindi po yon ha. Ano pong ibig sabihin pag sinabi nating labor hospital? Pag sinabi nating labor hospital, ito po yung ospital ng mga manggagawa. Kaya nga labor code, laborer. So ito yung ospital dati ng mga manggagawa. So nurses, so now ang pangalan niya na ngayon is QMMC. Now, what is the mission statement of QMMC? Kinig. Their mission nurses, their mission statement in a gist to this is not nurses the verbatim, but in a gist, their mission nurses, their mission statement is to provide full range of accessible and affordable healthcare. Again, their mission nurses is to provide full range of accessible and affordable healthcare. Ulitin natin, what is mission? What is mission? Reason. So ano ngayon ang dahilan nila? Ano ngayon ang dahilan nila kung bakit nila tinayo yung ospital? Ang dahilan nila, nurse, is for them to be able to provide full range of accessible and affordable healthcare. That is their mission. Nurses, that is the reason, that is their mission. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, what about vision? Pag sinabi naman natin vision, nurse, vision is what the agency wants to achieve. Again, vision is what the agency wants to achieve. This is what the agency wants to achieve, and this is futuristic. This is what the agency wants to achieve, and this is futuristic. So question, anong gusto kong tandaan kay vision? Kay vision, I want you to remember, nurses, wants to achieve. Again, pag sinabi natin vision, wants to achieve, wants to achieve. Pag sinabi natin wants to achieve, narating na o hindi ba? Hindi pa. Pero gusto ba nilang marating? Yes, that's why it is futuristic. Now, what's now a very good example of vision? O makinig, makinig. Very good example of vision. Ito yung madalas yung nakikita sa mga vision statement. May mga nakasulat na to be globally competitive, to be the number one health institution in Southeast Asia, to be the number one university in the Philippines. O question, nurses, narating na o hindi pa? Hindi ba? Pero gusto ba nilang marating? Yes. O, di ba? Parang katulad ng health for all Filipinos by 2022. Shet Besh, 2023 na. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O, that is what we call vision. Kaya ang vision, pwedeng mabago. Nagkakaintindihan ba? You can change the vision. Nagkakaintindihan. So, ulitin natin. Anong tatandaan kay mission? Ano tatandaan kay mission? Reason. Vision? Vision wants to achieve. Nagkakaintindihan now. Another nurses that will guide you now in planning are what we call as sure nurses, philosophy. Another thing that will guide you in planning are what we call as your philosophy. Now, what are philosophy, nurse? Philosophy are statement of beliefs. These are statement of beliefs, values, and principles. Again, statement of beliefs, values, and principles. These are statement of beliefs, values, and principles. Now, anong gusto kong tandaan mo kay philosophy? In philosophy, nurse, I want you to remember the word believe, believe, believe in the statement. Again, I want you nurses to remember the word believe. In short, makinig. Nurses, if you see the word believe in the statement, utang na loob, besh, huwag ka na mag-isip. That is automatically a philosophy. Nagkakaintindihan because philosophy is a statement of belief. Nagkakaintindihan. For example, nakasulat na, we believe in the personal worth and dignity of every human being. Question, is that a philosophy? Yes or no? Yes, because of the word believe. Ano bang gusto kong tatandaan? Always remember, nurse, that philosophy is also value-centered. Philosophy, nurse, is also value-centered. O, dun lang sa statement na binigay ko, we believe in the personal worth and dignity of every human being. Question, is that value-centered? Yes or no? Yes, nagkakaintindihan. So that is philosophy. Kaya nga kung papansinin ninyo, nurses, dun sa ibang mga organization, aside from stating their philosophy, another thing that they do, nurses, is nurses, they state their core values. Under their philosophy, they also state their core values. Di ba? Usually under the philosophy, they state their core values. Question, those core values, are those part of the philosophy? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, nagkakaintindihan ba? Again na, so that is what we call philosophy. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Now, aside from philosophy, another thing that we need to consider in creating a good plan is for you to nurses, again, nurses, for you to develop your goals. Siyempre, kung may goals ka, hindi pwedeng mawala si objectives. Siyempre, kung may goals, hindi pwedeng mawala si objectives. Question, what is the difference between goals and objectives? Sinong general? Goals or objectives? Goals. Sinong specific? Objectives. That's why if we're talking about goals, nurse, goals are general statements. Goals are general statements of aims and purposes. Again, goals, nurses, are general statements of aims and purposes. These are general statements of aims and purposes. General statements of aims and purposes. While objectives naman, nurse, are the specific statements, objectives are the specific statements of aims and purposes, specific statements of aims and purposes that are used. Specific statements of aims and purposes that are used to carry out the goals. That are used to carry out the goals. So ulitin ko ha. Sino ang general? Goals. Sino ang specific? Objectives. Ano daw ang ginagamit mo para ma-reach mo ang goal mo? Ano daw ang ginagamit para ma-reach ang goal? Objectives. At anong focus ng management? Naku, nawala. Utang na loob. Yan ang unang-uno kong binigay sa yung sagot. Sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo. Ulitin natin. What is the focus of management? Goals. Di ba sabi ko sa inyo, any question that talks about management, ano lang ang sagot? Goals, nurses. Is management always about goal accomplishment? Yes or no? Yes. Is it about reaching your goals? Yes. Is it about goal realization? Yes or no? Yes. Kaya ulitin natin. Basta management ang tanong. Ano lang ang sagot? Basta management ang tanong. Ano lang ang sagot? Goals. Nagkakaintindihan. Kaya nga tingnan mo. Nasa first function ka pa lang. Nasa planning ka pa lang. You set the goals. Because goals are the focus of management. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Sige, ulitin natin. Again, nurses. Again, sino general? Goals. Sino specific? Objectives. Ano ang kailangan mo para ma-reach mo ang goal mo? Objectives. And what is the focus of management? Goals. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. So I will now give you a statement, nurse. Then try to identify whether the statement is general or specific. O para mabilis tayo, pag general G, pag specific S. Nagkakaintindihan tayo, ha? Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Yes. So again, try to tell me whether the statement is general or specific. For example, to deliver safe quality nursing care. Again, to deliver safe quality nursing care. What is that statement? General or specific? General. So question now is, goal or objective? Goal or objective? Goal. Pero kung halimbawa mo nakasulat, vital signs every 4 hours. General, specific. Specific. Assessment every shift. Specific. Medication as ordered. Specific. INO every shift. Specific. So what are those nurses? Goals or objectives? Objectives. O question, lahat ng objective na binanggit ko, pwede ba natin gamitin yon para ma-reach natin yung goal natin to deliver safe, quality nursing care? Yes or no? Yes. So those are your goals and objectives. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. Maliwanag? Yes. Now, another now that will guide you nurses in planning are what we call as your policies. Another nurse are what we call as your policies. Now, what are policies, nurse? Pag sinabi nating policies nurse, are plans. Policies are plans. These are plans reduced to statements. Again, plans reduced to statements, plans reduced to statements that helps the organization. Plans reduced to statements that helps the organization in decision making. Again, these are plans reduced to statements that helps the organization in decision making. Again, plans reduced to statements that helps the organization in decision making. So, ano daw ang ginagawa ng organization so that they can come up with the best decision? Ano daw ang ginagawa ng organization so that they can come up with the best decision? Policies. Again, ano daw ang ginagawa ng organization so that they can come up with the best decision? Policies. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Very good example. O wag na tayong lumayo. Very good example. Punta tayo sa school ninyo. Question. Sa school ninyo, may mga policy po bang sinusunod? Yes. Is there a policy being implemented by the school so that they can decide whether a student can be promoted to the next level? Yes or no? Yes. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Oh, nurses. Very good example. Nurses, meaning from 3rd year ka to 4th year ka. Anong policy ng school? Para ma-promote ka, 3rd year to 4th year. Anong policy ng school? Anong policy? For you to be promoted, you have to pass your subjects. Do you agree, yes or no? Do you agree? Yes. And in nursing, nursing, you have to pass nurses, specifically your NCM. O ang tanong, may policy din ba para maipasa mo ang NCM mo? Yes. Anong policy ng school? You have to pass both theoretical and RLE o question. Pasado ang theoretical mo. Bagsak ang RLE mo. Question. Pass or failed ka? Failed. So kahit magmakaawa ka pa sa CI mo, ano pa rin ang grade mo? Failed, because the decision is not the personal decision of the CI, but the decision to fail you is based on the policies. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, another good example. Punta tayo ng OR. OR. O question. Anong policy sa loob ng OR? Anong policy sa loob ng OR? Sterile, di ba? Kaya nga, nurses, there's only an acceptable garment to be used inside the OR. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes, yung ginamit mo, nurses, sa labas, hindi mo yun pwedeng gamitin sa loob. Do you agree? Yes. Oh, now, imaginein mo. Imaginein mo, nurse, yung patient mo, tapos ng operation. So after the operation, nasa PACU na siya. Nasa PACU. PACU. Post-anesthesia care unit. PACU. Nagkakaintindihan. PACU ang basa dyan, natatawa ka dyan, hayop ka. O, sige, basahin mo to. Basahin mo to. PAC, ito. U, isa pa. PAC, isa pa. U, o bilisan mo. PACU, o PACU ka rin. Nagkakaintindihan kang hayop ka. Uy, pero that's PACU. Diba? I don't know if you're watching foreign films, yung mga Grey's Anatomy, etc. NICU. You don't nurses, they don't read this as NICU. It's NICU. SICU is SICU. So, PACU, nagkakaintindihan ba? Kaloka tong mga to. Akala nagmumura ako, sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo. O, nurse! So, nasa PACU na yung patient mo. Ito ngayong asawa. Ito ngayong asawa. Nasa labas. Gusto ngayong pumasok sa loob. But the husband, nurse, refused to change his clothes. Ayaw niya magpalit ng damit. Ang itsura niya naka-shorts, naka-chinelas, putik-putik pa yung baa. Amoy ang hitba mo kang hindi pa naliligo. Question, papasukin mo ba? Papasukin mo ba? No. Nurses, nagmamakaawa na sa'yo, papasukin mo ba? No. Umiiyak na, papasukin mo ba? No. Nurses, lumuluhod na, papasukin mo ba? No. Nurses, lumuluhan na ng dugo, papasukin mo ba? Yes! Hayop ka, lumuluhan ng dugo, papasukin mo na yun, o operahan din yung hayop ka. O question, bakit hindi mo siya pinapasok? Because your decision is not your own decision, but your decision is based on the policies. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, syempre kung may policy ka, another thing that will guide your nurse during planning are what we call as your procedures. Now, what are procedures, nurse? Procedures, nurse, are the step-by-step instructions. Again, procedures are the step-by-step instructions. Pag sinabi kong step-by-step, 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 ibig sabihin, dapat ba dito sunod-sunod? Yes. Do you need to follow the steps? Yes. Can you skip a step? No. Oh, very good example. Balik tayo sa school ninyo. Ano nga ang policy sa loob ng school? For you to be promoted, you have to pass your subjects. Oh, pasado na ngayon lahat ng subject mo, nurse. Pasado na lahat ng subject mo, nurse. Nurses, enrollment na. Sakto enrollment na. Hawak mo ngayon cash. Cash payment ka. RK ka, girl. RK ka. So, cash payment ka. Question, dahil cash payment ka, can you go directly to the cashier? Pwede ka bang dumiretso sa cashier? Ma'am, ito na po ang bayad ko, enrolled na po ako. Pwede ba yon? No. Kaya nga 'di ba kung makikita nyo, sa registrar's office nyo, may nakapost doon. Procedures for enrollment. Nakasulat, step 1, go to window 1. Step 2, go to window 2. Step 3, go to window 3. Hanggang ang huling window, cashier. Question, do you need to follow the steps? Yes. Can you skip a step? No. Another good example. Punta tayo nurses ng OR. O ulitin natin, OR. O for example, ikaw ang scrub nurse. And nurses, kung ikaw magiging scrub nurse, are there certain procedures that you need to follow? Yes, nurses. Kung ikaw ang scrub nurse, there are certain procedures that you need to follow. You have to do scrubbing, followed by gowning, followed by gloving. Nagmamadali ka na. Nurses, tinatamad ka na. Pwede bang gowning at gloving na lang? No. So you have to follow the procedures. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. So if you want to create a good plan, you have to adhere nurses with the procedures implemented within the organization. And the last nurses tool in planning that we have are what we call as your rules. The last nurse are what we call as your rules. Now, what are rules? Rules, nurses, are guidelines. Again, these are guidelines for action and non-action. Rules are guidelines for... Mamaya ako sasagutin yan. Huwag kang excited, buisit ka, Moses. Darating tayo diyang hayop ka. Isulat mo muna yung rules mong buisit ka. O ulitin ko ha. Again, pag sinabi natin rules nurses are guidelines. These are guidelines for action and non-action. Again, these are guidelines for action and non-action. Ibig sabihin, dito ba nakasulat ang pwede at hindi mo pwedeng gawin? Yes. Question, do you need to follow the rules? Yes, because always remember, nurse, in every rule, nurses, there are certain regulations. At ano yung mga regulations? Regulations includes warning, either oral or written. Pwedeng suspension. Suspension 1 day, suspension 3 days, suspension 1 week, suspension 1 month, or it could finally lead nurses to your termination. It could finally lead to termination or your dismissal. So those are what we call rules. Very good example. Huwag na tayong lumayo. Naalala niyo pa ba nung first year kayo? Naalala pa ba nung first year kayo? Yes. Orientation, naalala pa? Yes. Now, nung first year ka, binigyan ka ng student handbook. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yung student handbook nyo na kahit kailan hindi mo man lang nabuklat, buisit ka. Graduate ka't lahat-lahat, bago pa. Kilala kitang hayop ka. Question is, nurses, if you're going to look at now your student handbook, at the back of which, there are what we call rules and regulations. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Now, as a student, they need to follow nurses those rules. Yes or no? Yes, because if you're going to violate the rule, there is an equivalent regulation. So those are your rules and regulations. Now, nurses, question now is, what is now the difference between policies and rules? Ito na, Moses! Masyado ka kasing excited, hayop ka. Darating tayo dyan, buisit ka. Question is, anong pagkakaiba ng policies at rules? Makinig ka na para once and for all maintindihan mo to. Kasi hindi to tinuturo ng teacher mo. Hanggang ngayon nalilito ka dito. So makinig ka na para hindi ka magkamali. Para pagkatapos nito, mas magaling ka na sa teacher mong buisit ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Anong pagkakaiba ng rules tsaka ng policies? Let's state first the obvious. Sabi ko kanina, policies are used for decision making. Meaning, this is not subject to regulation. In short, sa policy mo, walang nurses na warning, nabibigyan ng warning, walang nasususpend, walang nate-terminate. Nagkakaintindihan. Pero ito lang ang ginagamit ng organization so that they can make decisions. Not unlike in rules. In rules, if you're going to violate it, again, sabi ko, you can be subjected to certain regulations. Nagkakaintindihan tayo, ha? Maliwanag. Okay? Maliwanag tayo dun sa part na yon. Are we clear on that part? Yes. Now, ano bang pagkakaiba ng policies? O ito, makinig ka na maigi. If we're talking about policies, the application of policies is general application. There is a general application. Pag sinabi kong general application, meaning everybody is affected. All stakeholders are affected. Meaning, kesihod ang empleyado ka o hindi, bisita ka lang, watcher ka lang, pasyente ka lang, napadaan ka lang, you are affected by the policy. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag tayo dyan. Yes, not unlike your rules. Rules, application of which is specific. Again, specific ang application nito. There's specific application. Anong ibig sabihin ng specific application? Katulad nung binigay ko sa inyo, doon sa student handbook nyo. Yung rules and regulation nun, para kanino lang yun? Sa students. So specific, it's only for the students. Pwede mo ba yung gamitin sa CI mo? Pwede mo ba yung gamitin sa CI mo? Hindi. Bakit? Kasi yung CI mo, may sarili silang rules and regulation. So when it comes to the organizations, the organization, rules, nurses, the one affected here are the employees only. Hindi pwedeng lahat. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag tayo. Are we clear? So ulitin ko ha. Sinong general? Everybody is affected? Policies. Specific ang application, empleyado lang? Rules. Sino ang subjected to regulation? Rules. Sino lang ang ginagamit for decision making? Policies. O makinig. I will now give you an example. Then try to tell me whether that is a policy or a rule. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Yes. For example, tardiness. Tardiness, policy or rules? Rules, di ba? Kayo nurses, pag kayo ay na-late, there's equivalent nurses number of late equals to 1 absence. Do you agree? Yes or no? At pag na-late ka ng 15 minutes, automatic absent ka na. O tanong, pwede ba yan gamitin sa mga watcher mo? Sir, bakit po late kayo? 8 o'clock po, dapat nandito na kayo, 10 o'clock na po. Sir, suspended ka po for 1 month. O hayop ka, pwede ba yon? Hindi. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Do you get me now? Nagigets nyo na? Yes. O nurses, incomplete uniform. Incomplete uniform, policy or rules? Rules. Nagkakaintindihan. Para kanino yan? Employees. O tanong, pwede ba yan gamitin sa nurses patient mo? Sir, bakit incomplete ang uniform nyo? Bakit yung pajama nyo lang ang suot nyo? Wala po yung pantaas. Dahil incomplete po ang uniform nyo, suspended po ang medication nyo. O hayop ka. Walang ganon, Mars. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Do you get me now? Nagigets nyo na. O nurses, one watcher at a time. One watcher at a time. Policy or rules? Policy. Nurses, sige tanungin kita. Kung halimbawa ikaw yung nurse, 3 ang watcher ng patient mo. Tanong, masususpend ka ba? Dahil 3 ang watcher ng patient mo? No, because it is not subject to regulation. But you can use it for decision making. So 3 watcher ng patient mo, kausapin mo sila. Sir, may policy po tayo, 1 watcher at a time. Mag-usap-usap po kayo kung sino pong matitira. Nakukuha. Nagigets? Maliwanag ako? Yes. Nurses, no smoking. No smoking. Policy, very good. Nurses, Gambling while working. Gambling while working. May working na nga! Sino yung nagbabalisi dyan? Sasabunutan ko yung bulbol. Gambling while working. What is that? Rules. Nagkakaintindihan. No pets allowed. Policy. No ID, no entry. O, depende. Makinig. Yung no ID, no entry, depende yan. Kung yung no ID, no entry, nakalagay doon sa nurses, establishment, sa pasukan, at lahat ng papasok, they need to present an ID. That is a policy. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Visitor ka man o empleyado ka, kung magpe-present ka ng ID, that is a policy. Pero kung yung no ID, no entry, nakalagay sa employee's entrance, at pag wala kang ID, hindi ka na papapasukin, automatic absent ka na. Anong tawag mo doon? Rules. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Nakukuha. Moses, nasagot ko ba yung tanong kong Mr. Excited? Sasabunutan ko yung Sasabunutan ko yung mga bulbul nito, mga to. O, maliwanag na. Huwag kasi kayo excited. Patapusin niyo muna ako. Malay mo, nurses, pagtapos ko, masasagot ko pala yung tanong mong hayop ka. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo, ha? Okay, maliwanag na. O, pagdating ng board, pag nurses, magbabalik na rin po ba yung policy tsaka rules? Hoy, wag ka magsabing bagong shave. Ibang sa bunot ko, besh. Hanggang roots abot to, hayop ka. Kala mo may effect yung pag-shave mong buwisit ka? Oh, nurses, maliwanag na tayo, ha? So again, these are now nurses, the different tools for tools nurses for your planning. My next question is, you have already nurses utilize the different tools in planning. Question, once you have already utilized the tools in planning, question, nurses, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Question, once you have utilized the different tools in planning, question, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Is it an assurance? Is it, nurses, an assurance that you have a good plan? Yes or no? Again, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Yes or no? Oh, imagine, nurse, you were guided by the mission and vision. You were guided by the philosophy. You were guided by the goals and objectives. You've adhered with the policies, procedures, rules. Question, if you have utilized all of this, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Yes! Why? Makinig. Utang na loob, besh. Ang tinatanong ko lang, if you have a good plan. Yung plano lang naman ang pinag-uusapan natin eh. I'm just asking you if you have a good plan. I never ask you if you have an effective plan. Oh, bakit no ang sagot mo sa akin? Kasi ang iniisip mo, effectiveness. Eh, hindi naman yun yung tanong ko. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Hindi naman yun yung tanong ko eh. Nurses, I'm asking you if you only have a good plan. O makinig makinig. This is what I want every one of you, nurses, to realize. Okay? Makinig maigi. This is one of your nurses' flaws. This is one of your nurses' common mistake in nurses in the board. Ang tendency nyo, you do not answer the question. Always remember, number 1 rule sa board exam, kung ano ang tanong, yun ang sinasagot. Utang na loob, besh, huwag kang gumawa ng kwento. Hayop kang marites ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Uulitin ko, huwag kang gumawa ng kwento. Ipapaalala ko sa'yo, ang course mo'y nursing, hindi script writing. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So number 1 rule sa board, kung ano lang ang tanong, yun lang ang sinasagot. Do not overthink. Never think outside of the box. In the board, wag na wag kang mag-a-assume. Masasaktan ka lang. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Bawal mag-assume sa board. Kung ano lang ang tanong, yun lang ang sinasagot. Never question the question. Nagkakaintindihan ba? May kausap ba ako? Maliwanag po tayo. Okay, kaya nga makinig. I want you to realize this mistake. Why? Because before the board exam, I want you to be able nurses. 2 nurses improve this before the board. Gusto ko makita nyo kung ano yung nagiging problema nyo. And this is one of your problem. Hindi yung sinasagot ang tanong. Nurses, less than 3 months before the board exam, I want you to be able to improve this. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag tayo. Kaya nga lagi ko sinasabi sa estudyante, makinig. Ang lagi ko sinasabi sa estudyante, pag ang tanong ay mahaba ang tanong, if the question is very long, do not read the entire question first. That is always my suggestion. This is a test-taking strategy. If the question is very long, do not read the question first in its entirety. The first thing that I want you to read, nurses, is the last sentence. Why? Because the last sentence is always the main question. Bakit? Anong mangyayari kung babasahin mo na siya ng buo? Pag babasahin mo siya ng buo, lahat yan, nurses, lahat ng nakasulat doon, automatic nurses, i-consider mo. Kaya lahat na kinonsider mo, pagdating mo na sa dulo, pagdating mo na sa main question, nalito ka na. Eh yung iba doon, panglito lang. Yung iba, wala pang kinalaman. Eh lahat yun kinonsider mo. So pagdating mo ng main question, hindi mo na alam kung ano hinahanap. Nalito ka na. Kaya pag mahaba ang tanong, do not read the nurses the question in its entirety. Ang una mong basahin, last sentence. The last sentence is the main question. Bago mo nurses basahin ang buo para alam mo na lang kung alin ang connected at kung anong i-consider. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Inuulit ko ha, kung ano lang ang tanong, yun lang ang sinasagot. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo. Maliwanag. Sige, so ulitin natin. Again, nurses, if you have utilized all of this, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Yes, but my question is it an assurance that you have an effective plan? No, because effectiveness of the planners will always depend during implementation. Nagkakaintindihan na ba tayo? So during implementation kasi, there are a lot of factors that you need to consider. Do you agree? Do you agree, yes or no? Yes, a lot of factors may affect the plan. Pero kung plano at plano lang ang pinag-uusapan natin, kung lahat ito ginawa mo, is it an assurance that you have a good plan? Yes or no? Yes, nagkakaintindihan ba? Now, my next question is, you have already analyzed your SWOT. You have already nurses, you have already answered the questions in the planning formula. You have already utilized the different tools in planning. Question now is, are you done with planning? Are you done with planning? Yes or no? Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Bakit? O parang ganito lang. O katulad ninyo, 'di ba? Ito buong summer, wala kayong gagawin kundi mag-aral. Habang ang mga kaibigan mo ay mga nagbi-beach, nagsuswimming, pero ikaw subsub ka sa pag-aaral, always remember, okay lang 'yon. Okay lang 'yon. Huwag ka na munang mainggit. Nagkakaintindihan. Focus ka muna sa review mo. Ang gawin niyo na lang after ng boards, saka na kayo mag-outing. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Kahit pagkatapos ng boards mo, nurses, May 30, kahit May 30, automatic mag-outing na kayo lahat, walang problema. Tapusin mo muna yung boards mo. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O, nurses, so ang ginawa ninyo, so the beaches will go to the beach. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O, nurses, so plinanin nyo na kayong outing nyo. Nurses, saan pupunta? Anong resort? Ilang araw? Nurses, so nurses, you already have a perfect plan. Anong oras aalis? Anong oras babalik? You already have a perfect plan. So perfect na ang plano mo sa outing nyo. Dahil perfect na ang plano nyo sa outing nyo. Question, pwede na ba kayong umalis? Perfect na ang plano sa outing. Question, pwede na ba kayong umalis? Hindi pa. Bakit? Utang na loob. San ka nakakita? Perfect nga ang outing ninyo. Wala pala kayong pera o hayop ka, alangang maglakad ka mula sa inyo hanggang dun sa resort ng outing nyo. So question is, do you need nurses first money? Yes or no? Yes. That's why part of planning nurse is for you to set your budget. Part of planning is for you to set your budget. Now, question is, what is budget? Pag sinabi nating budget, nurse, budget is the systematic way. Again, budget is the systematic way of meeting with the expenses. Wait lang po ha, sandali lang po. Ulitin ko, nurse ha. Budget, nurse, is the systematic way of meeting with expenses. Again, systematic way of meeting with expenses. Now, question now is, bakit sinabing systematic? O makinig. Bakit sinabing systematic? Kasi nurse, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na nagbabudget ka kung ang concern mo lang, yung gagastusin mo lang ngayon. Kung ang concern mo lang ay yung gagastusin mo lang ngayon, that is not budgeting. That is not budgeting, nurse. That is what we call spending. Nagkakaintindihan. Now, why is it called systematic? Because in budgeting, it will always involve the past, the present, and the future expenses. In budgeting, nurse, it will always involve the past, the present, and the future expenses. It will involve the past, the present, and the future expenses. Oh, very good example. Very good example, nurses. Oh, balik tayo sa bahay. Sino nagbabudget sa bahay? Sino po nagbabudget sa bahay? Si nanay. Oh, nurses, no offense meant naman sa tatay mo. Nurses, that yung si tatay madalas, siya ang nagpo-provide. Siya ang nagbibigay, nurses, ng pera. Pero sinong bahala pagka siya yung perang binigay ni tatay? Si nanay. Oh, for example, nagbigay si tatay ng budget for 1 week. 1 week na budget. Kasama na dito ang pamalengke, panggastos, pambayad ng bills, pamasahe, pambaon, lahat na. O question now is, mamamalengke ngayon si nanay. Question, bago mamalengke si nanay, kailangan niya bang alamin kung magkano kailangan niya for today? Yes or no? Yes. Pero para malaman niya kung magkano kailangan niya ngayon, she needs to go back to her past expenses. Kailangan niyang isipin, magkano bang isang kilong karne? Magkano ba ang 1 kilong bigas? Magkano ba ang mga sahog? Nurses, magkano na bang sibuyas? So that she would know how much she will be needing for today. O question, mamamalengke ngayon si nanay. O tanong, nurses, mamamalengke ngayon si nanay. Gagastusin niya ba lahat yung perang hawak niya? No. Magtitira ba siya para sa mga susunod pang mga panggastos? Yes or no? Sa susunod na mga araw? Yes. That's why it is called systematic. Because it will always involve the past, the present, and the future expenses. Now, what else now, nurse? Do I want you to remember about budget? Always remember, nurse, that budget, nurse, focuses on the revenues and expenses. Always remember, nurse, that budget, nurse, focuses on revenues and expenses. So, ulitin natin. What is the focus of budget? Again, what is the focus of budget? Again, what is the focus of budget? Revenues and expenses. Now, ang problema, walang lumabas sa board na revenues and expenses. So kung walang revenues and expenses, always remember, another term for revenue is income. Another term for revenue is income. Another term for expenses, nurses, are costs. So ulitin ko ha. Walang revenues and expenses. Another term is income and costs. So ulitin natin. What is the focus of budget? What is the focus of budget? Revenues and expenses. Again, what's the focus of budget? Revenues and expenses. Walang revenues and expenses sa board exam? Income and cost. My question is, pag isa lang ang lumabas, tama o mali? For example, lumabas lang sa board exam. You are doing budgeting so that you can gain revenue, income, kita. Question, tama o mali? Mali, because it should always be both. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Maraming nadadali dito ha. O very good example. Very good example. Kunyari, nurse, may project ka. Kunyari may project ka. At ang budget mo sa project mo, 1 million. Ulitin ko ha, may budget ka. Ang project mo sa budget mo, 1 million. O ganun talaga. Mangangarap ka na lang, lakihan mo na. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O again, magkano ang budget? 1 million. Again, magkano ang budget? 1 million. Again, magkano ang budget? 1 million. Kumita. Kumita ang 1 million mo, bes. Kumita. Magkano ang kinita? Piso. Again, magkano kinita? Magkano kinita? Piso. O ang tanong, kumita ba rin ba? Yes! Ibig sabihin, yung 1 million mo, naging 1 million and 1 peso. So kumita ka pa rin. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Ulitin natin, magkano ang budget? 1 million. Magkano kinita? Piso. Magkano ang budget? 1 million. Magkano kinita? Piso. Kumita ba? Kumita ba? Yes. Magkano kinita? Piso. Ang tanong, may mali bang nangyari? May mali bang nangyari? Anong wala? Hayop ka kung sino sumagot ng walang buwisit ka. Sige nga, saan ka nakakita? 1 milyon yung budget mo. Ang kinita mo lang, piso. Hayop ka. Kung kontento ka sa piso, manahimik ka sa bahay mo, bibigyan kita ng 20. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O question, may mali bang nangyari? May mali ba nangyari? Yes! In short, kung piso lang ang kinita, is there something wrong with the expenses? Yes or no? Yes. Is there something wrong with the cost? Yes or no? Yes. Kaya inuulit ko, pag isa lang ang lumabas, tama o mali? Mali. It should always be both. In short, in the board exam, besh, huwag kang mukhang pera. Kahit totoong mukha kang pera. Sa board exam, magpapanggap ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Do you get the point? Yes or no? Yes, ulitin natin. What is the focus of budget? What is the focus of budget? Revenues and expenses. Kung walang revenues and expenses sa board exam, income and cost. Ulitin natin, pag isa lang ang lumabas, nurses, tama o mali? Mali. It should always be both. Now, what else do I want you to remember about budget? When it comes to budget, I want you also to remember that there are actually four common types of budget that we see in the organization. And what are these 4 common types of budget? One, nurses, is what we call your capital expense budget. First, you have the capital expense budget. Second, you have the operational expense budget. Second, you have the operational expense budget. Third, you have the personal budget. Third, you have the personal budget. And the last, you have your cash budget. Inulit ko, there are 4 types of budget that we usually see in an organization. Number 1, you have the capital. Second, you have the operational. Third is the personnel. And the last is your cash. O, makinig ngayon sa akin. Makinig. Ito ngayon ang lumalabas mo sa board exam. Another question being asked in the board, aside from revenues and expenses, income and costs. Another thing being asked is, you will be given a situation. Then from that situation, you have to identify what type of budget is being used, whether that is capital, operational, personnel, or cash. Let's start off with the capital expense budget. Ano ang gusto kong tandaan mo kay capital expense budget? Always remember, capital expense budget is usually expensive. Capital expense budget is usually expensive. This is usually expensive. In short, basta malaking halaga ang pangangailangan, automatic, anong budget ang ginagamit? Basta malaking halaga ang kailangan, automatic, anong budget ang ginagamit? Capital. Nagkakaintindihan. Pero, sabi ko, usually. Pag sinabi kong usually, is it all the time? No. So meaning, pwede bang maliit na halaga lang, pero capital ang ginagamit? Yes or no? Pwede bang maliit na halaga lang, pero capital ang ginagamit? Yes or no? Yes, nurses. 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 Again so regardless of the cost, ano ngayon ang gusto kong tandaan mo kay capital expense budget? In capital expense budget, basta it is for long-term use. Capital expense budget, basta it is for long-term use. Long-term use, long-term use, long-term use. In short, basta pang matagalan yan. Anong budget ang gagamitin? Basta pang matagalan, capital. So dito, regardless of the price, sabi ko ngayon na usually. Pag sabi ko bang usually, is it all the time? No. Basta natandaan mo lang, basta malaking halaga, automatic capital yan. Pero, ano ang tatandaan mo sa board exam? Long-term use. So regardless of the price, whether expensive or cheap, as long as it is for long-term use, that is capital. O very good example. Very good example. Kunyari, yung organization bumili ng isang nurses monoblock na upuan. For example, yung organization bumili ng isang monoblock na upuan. Question, ang isang monoblock na upuan, mahal o mura? Question, ang isang monoblock na upuan, mahal o mura? Mura lang yan. Nasa mga 1,000 mahigit lang yan. Nagkakaintindihan. O for example, yung organization mo, bibili ng isang pirasong monoblock na upuan. Kung bibili siya ng isang pirasong monoblock na upuan, tanong, maliit na halaga lang ba yon sa organization? Yes. Pero tanong ko ngayon, pagkabili nila ng upuan, ginamit nila ngayon. Question, pagdating ng uwian, itatapon na ba nila? No. Are they going to use it for long term? Yes. Kaya nga ulitin natin. Ano ang tatandaan mo kay capital? Long-term use. Now, what about operational? Pag sinabi naman natin operational nurse, operational is the day-to-day expense. Again, operational is the day-to-day expense. Pag sinabi kong day-to-day, 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 ibig sabihin, ito ba ang ginagamit sa araw-araw? Yes, ito yung ginagamit sa araw-araw para tumakbo ang operations. In short, kung wala to, hindi tatakbo ang kumpanya. Very good example. Very good example, nurse. Kuryente. Tanong, ang kuryente po ba ginagamit sa araw-araw? Yes. Question, kailangan ba ng kuryente para tumakbo ang kumpanya? Yes. Therefore, ang pambayad ng kuryente, saan mo kukunin? Capital o operational? Operational. Nagkakaintindihan. Now, what about nurses? Personnel budget. Now, what is personnel? Personal budget, nurse, is the salary. Personal budget is the salary. Pero kayo nung salary, this is the salary, nurse, of your full-time employees. The full-time employees or the full-time equivalents. This is the salary of the full-time employees or the full-time equivalent. Now, let's define now what a full-time employee is. Pag sinabi natin full-time employee ka, question, how many hours do you work in a day? Pag sinabi natin full-time employee ka, how many hours do you work in a day? 8. For how many days a week? For how many days a week? 5. So meaning, makinig, if you're working, nurses, for 8 hours a day, again, if you're working for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're considered full-time. Question, kung full-time employee ka, nurses, regular ka bang pumapasok? Yes or no? Yes. In short, kung regular kang pumapasok, predictable ba ang pasok mo? Yes or no? Yes. So meaning, wala ba man ng sweldo, kaya bang i-predict kung ilang beses kang papasok sa loob ng 15 days? Yes or no? Yes. Now makinig. What do I want you now, nurses, to remember about nurses' personal budget? Always remember, personal budget is prepared ahead of time. Inuulit ko, personal budget is prepared ahead of time. This is prepared ahead of time. Pag sinabi kong prepared ahead of time, prepared ahead of time, prepared ahead of time, ibig sabihin, wala pa naman ang sahod. Kunyari, ang sahod nyo 15:30. Meaning, hindi pa man dumarating ang 15, nakahanda na ba ang sasahurin ng mga empleyado? Hindi pa man dumarating ang 15, nakahanda na ba ang sasahurin ng empleyado? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Because you can prepare it ahead of time. Why? Full-time ang empleyado mo eh. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag po tayo. Yes or no? Now, but always remember, even though this is prepared ahead of time, it will only be available on the day of the salary. Even though this is prepared ahead of time, it will only be available on the day of the salary. So ulitin natin, pag sinabi natin personal budget, what is personnel? What is personal budget? Salary. Kayo nung salary? Kayo nung salary? Full-time. Nagkakaintindihan. Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Yes. So what about cash budget? Pag sinabi ko naman cash budget, nurse, cash budget is available all the time. Again, cash budget is available all the time. This is available all the time for emergency purpose. Again, available all the time for emergency purpose. So meaning, is it always available? Is it always available? Yes, pero kailan lang daw ginagamit? Kailan lang daw ginagamit? Emergency. Pag sinabi kong emergency, inaasahan o hindi? Pag sinabi kong emergency, inaasahan o hindi? Hindi. Biglaan o hindi? Biglaan. Planado o hindi? Hindi. Nagkakaintindihan. In short, ito ba yung tinatawag nilang emergency fund? Ito ba yung tinatawag na emergency fund? Yes. Ito ba yung tinatawag na cash on hand? Yes. Ito ba yung tinatawag na petty cash? Yes. So meaning, it's always available. Pero kailan mo lang siya gagamitin? Sa mga gastusang hindi inaasahan. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So ulitin natin ha. Again, itong tumalabas sa board exam. You'll be given a situation, then you have to identify what type of budget is being used. Whether that is capital, operational, personnel, or cash. So I will now give you an example. Then try to tell me whether that is capital, operational, personnel, or cash. For example, renovation of an OR suite. Renovation of an OR suite. Capital, bakit? Bakit? Long term kasi, nagkakaintindihan. O nurses, nagpagawa ka ng annex building. Nagpagawa ka ng annex building. Capital, bakit? Long term pa rin. Nurses, nurses, lumapit sa yung empleyado. Ma'am, pwede po ba akong bumalik kasi may sakit po ang anak ko? Bakit cash? Hindi ba pwedeng personnel? Hindi ba pwedeng personnel? No. Why? What is personnel? What is personnel? Salary. Although it is prepared ahead of time, as I have said, it will only be available on the day of the salary. Bumabali, Beshi. Kung bumabali, question, may sahod na, wala pa? Wala pa. So, saan muna kukunin ang pangsahod? Saan muna kukunin ang ibang babali? Cash, budget. Nurses, nagbayad ka ng tubig. Operational. Nagbayad ka ng telepono. Operational. Bumili ka ng computer. Bumili ka ng computer. Hoy! Sino sumasagot ng operational? Hayop ka. Bakit? Araw-araw ka bang bumibili ng computer? Buisit ka. Sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo eh. Ulitin natin. Bumili ka ng computer. Capital. Bakit? Long term. O bumili ka ng aircon. Capital. Bakit? Long term. Maintenance ng aircon. Maintenance ng aircon. Operational, why? Monthly, may maintenance ba yan? Yes. Scheduled ba yan? Yes. So, itin natin bumili ka ng aircon. Capital. Maintenance ng aircon. Operational. Repair ng aircon. Repair ng aircon. Hoy! Para sumagot ng operational, buwisit ka. Anong operational? Pag sinabi mo namang operational ang repair mo, ibig sabihin, sa araw-araw na ginawa ng Diyos, Besh, inaasahan mo nang masisira ang aircon mo. Kaya sa araw-araw, may budget kang pagpapagawa. Hayop ka. Pag ganun ang nangyari, bumili ka na ng bago. Sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo. Ulitin natin. Repair ng aircon. Cash. Pag sinabi nating repair, biglaan o hindi? Biglaan o hindi? Biglaan. Planado o hindi? Hindi. Ulitin natin. Bumili ka ng aircon? Capital. Maintenance ng aircon? Operational. Repair ng aircon? Cash. Pero what if ang lumabas sa board exam, repair and maintenance? What if ang lumabas sa board exam, repair and maintenance? What is that? What if ang lumabas sa board, repair and maintenance? Operational. Pag ang lumabas sa board examiners is repair and maintenance, that is operational. Why? Makinig. Pag ang lumabas sa board exam is repair and maintenance, always remember, that is actually a maintenance. That is actually a maintenance. Yung repair na nakakabit doon sa repair and maintenance, that is only incidental. Meaning, that's actually a maintenance. But if during the maintenance, there is something that needs to be repaired, idadamay na nila. So, hindi to biglaan. May budget na for possible repairs. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag tayo dyan. Maliwanag So, ulitin natin. Bumili ka ng aircon. Capital. Maintenance ng aircon. Maintenance ng aircon. Operational. Repair ng aircon. cash. Pero pag lumabas sa board exam, repair and maintenance, operational. Nagkakaintindihan. Nurses, salary of your full-time employees. Salary of your full-time employees. Personnel. Salary of your part-time employees. Salary of your part-time employees. Hoy! Anong cash? Bakit nabigla ka? Nagulat ka? Oh my God, emergency! Ba't nandito ka? Nagulat ako, pumasok ka. Emergency, emergency, emergency! Pasahurin to, sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo. Ulitin natin. Nurses, salary of your part-time employees. Operational. Nagkakaintindihan. Now, why operational? O makinig, nurses. Nurses, always remember, personal budget is exclusively for full-time. Now, why operational? Unang tanong, ang empleyado po ba'y ginamit mo rin sa operation? Ang empleyado po ba'y ginamit mo rin sa operation? Yes, pero dahil part-time siya, hindi predictable ang pasok niya. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Hindi predictable ang pasok niya. You cannot prepare it ahead of time. Sila yung mga empleyadong papasok muna. Pagkapasok, may cut-off tayo. From cut-off, saka natin bilangin yung pinasok mo. Saka natin kukwentahin. Saka ka pa sasahurin. So, saan kukunin ang pangsahod sa'yo? Saan kukunin ang pangsahod sa'yo? Operational. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Yes, ulitin natin ha. Again, salary of your full-time employees. Salary of your full-time employees. Personnel. Salary of your part-time employees. Operational. Pero what if, ang lumabas sa board exam, salary of both full-time and part-time? What if ang lumabas sa board exam, salary of both full-time and part-time? Again, personal nurse is exclusively for full-time. Ang lumabas sa board exam, salary of both full-time and part-time. Anong capital? Hoy! Bakit? Pag pinasweldo mo nurses, automatic good for 5 years ang sweldo, sasabunutan ko yung bulbul mo. Again, pag lumabas sa board exam, salary of both full-time and part-time. Anong sagot? Operational. Why? Operational. O makinig. Pag sinabi nurse, salary of both full-time and part-time, it only means that the organizationers do not have a personal budget. In short, walang budget na piniprepare ahead of time. Meaning, part-time ka man o full-time ka man, parehas lang kayo. Parehas kayong papasok, may cut-off tayo, bilangin natin pareho yung pinasok mo, saka natin kwentahin, sabay kayong pasasahurin. Saan kukunin ang pangsahod sa'yo? Operational. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Maliwanag ha? So ulitin natin. Salary of your full-time employees? Personnel. Salary of part-time employees? Operational. Salary of both full-time and part-time? Operational. Kaya nga titingnan mo, di ba may mga organization, hindi eksaktong 15-30 ang sahod. Ang sahod ay 5, 20, 10, 25. So yung pinasok mo ng 1 to 15, cut to 15. So bibilangin ngayon yon. Kailan mo yun sasahurin? Pagdating ng 20 or 25. Or pwedeng 15-30 ang sahuran ninyo. Pero pumupondo ka. Yung pasok mo ng 16 to 30, yun ang suswelduhin mo sa 15. Nagkakaintindihan ba? That is operational. Attorney, paano ko yun malalaman? Full-time employee ako. Paano ko malalaman kung yung sahod ko galing ng personal budget o galing ng operational? Very easy. Ganito lang, Besh. Nurses, sahod nyo lang ang 15. Nurses, nag-absent ka, nag-nurses, na late ka, nurses within 15 days. Pero, pagdating ng 15, kompleto pa rin ang sahod mo. Personal yon. Bakit? Nagawa na eh. Nagawa na. Pero kung halimbawang pumasok ka nurses ng 1 to 15, umabsent ka, na-late ka, pagdating ng sahod, bawas ang late mo, bawas ang absent mo, operational yun. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. Maliwanag. Sige, bumili ka ng bond paper. Bumili ka ng bond paper? Bond paper! Bumili ka ng bond paper. Hoy! Wag mo kong sasagutin ng capital, hayop ka. Ano yung bond paper mo? For 5 years ang gamit? Sasabunutan kita dyan. Ulitin natin, bumili ka ng bond paper. Operational. Bakit? What is bond paper? Is it an office supply? Yes. Is it a consumable material? Yes. But nurses, again nurses, ulitin natin ha. If we're talking about budget, what is the focus of budget? What is the focus of budget? Revenues and expenses. Kung walang revenues and expenses sa board exam, income and cost. Ulitin natin, pag isa lang ang lumabas. Tama o mali? Mali. Should it be both? Yes or no? Yes. And nurses, what are again the 4 common types of budget? Number 1? Capital. Anong tatandaan kay capital? Long-term use. Next you have? Operational. What is again operational? Day-to-day. Pwede ba ditong consumable materials? Yes. Next you have? Next you have? Personnel. What is again personnel? Salary. Kayo nung salary? Full-time. Pag part-time? Pag part-time? Operational. Part-time and full-time? Operational. And the last, you have your cash. Again, what is cash? Is it always available? Yes. Pero kailan ginagamit? Emergency. Inaasahan o hindi? Hindi. Biglaan o hindi? Biglaan. Pwede ba dito ang repair? Yes. Pero pag repair and maintenance? Pag repair and maintenance? Operational. Nagkakaintindihan. So ngayon, balikan na natin yung outing mo. Diba? So perfect na ang plan ninyo. Ang problema natin, wala tayong pera. So anong ginawa ninyo? Nag-usap-usap kayong magkakaibigan. Sa pag-uusap-usap yung magkakaibigan, dito niya nakita, nurses, o nurses. So nagambaga na kayo. Nagambaga na kayo. May pera na kayo. Nurses, nag-rent na kayo ng resort. Nagbayad na kayo sa resort. Nag-rent na rin kayo ng van. Nag-rent na kayo ng van. May gasolina na rin ang van. O dahil may pera na kayo, may sasakyan na kayo, may gasolina na kayo, pwede na ba kayong umalis? Hindi pa. Bakit? Saan ka nakakita? Nurses, isa lang ang sasakyan. Nurses, may pera nga kayo, may sasakyan nga kayo, wala kayong driver. O question, kinakailangan ba nurses may driver muna? Yes or no? Yes, mag-usap muna kayo. Sino bang nurses magmamaneho papunta? Sinong pabalik? May palitan ba? Pagdating doon, sino nurses mamamalengke? Sino magluluto? Sino mag-iihaw? Sino maghuhugas? Sinong bibili ng alak? Sinong malalasing? Sinong magsusuka? Yan, schedule nyo na pati pagsuka para hindi kayo sabay-sabay tumatawag ng uwak, buisit ka. So again, do you need to organize them first? Yes or no? Yes. That's why the next function of management is no other than organizing. And we're going to discuss organizing after the break. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So break muna tayo and then after which, we're going to continue our discussion. Sige, go! Break muna. Sige po. Paki-on na po yung cam natin. Kindly turn on your cams. Pakibukas na po yung mga camera. Sige. So let's continue now with our discussion. So sabi nga natin, after you create your plan, you need to organize it first. Now, that's why the second function of management is no other than organizing. Question now is, what is organizing? Pag sinabi natin organizing, nurse, in organizing, you establish. Again, in organizing, you establish a formal structure of the organization. You establish a formal structure of the organization and create. Again, you establish a formal structure of the organization and create the job qualification and the job description. Again, you nurses, you establish a formal structure of the organization and create the job qualification and the job description. So inulit ko, in organizing, you establish a formal structure of the organization and create the job qualification and the job description. In short, in organizing, the first thing that you need to do here is to create first the structure of the organization. Ano ang magiging itsura ng organizational structure mo? Gaano ba yan kalaki? Ilang department ba yan? Bawat department, ilang unit yan? Bawat department, anong ginagawa niyan? Bawat unit, anong ginagawa niyan? Why do you need to do that? Para alam mo rin kung kanino mo ibibigay ang trabaho. That's why, if you will be asked, nurse, in the board about the purpose of the organizational structure, purpose of the organizational structure, purpose of the organizational structure, sulat. Lumalabas sa board. Always remember, nurse, that the purpose of the organizational structure is for work distribution. Again, the purpose of the organizational structure is for work distribution. The purpose, nurse, is for work distribution, meaning para alam mo kung kanino mo ibibigay ang trabaho. Itong gusto kong tandaan ninyo sa board, ha? In the actual board exam, do not expect that whatever I gave you will come out verbatim in the board. That will not be the case in the board exam. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo. Maliwanag. Ang tatandaan nyo, mautak ang BON mo. Your BON nurses can rephrase a single sentence in a million ways. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So ulitin natin. What is the purpose of your organizational structure? Again, what's the purpose of the organizational structure? Again, what's the purpose of the organizational structure? For work distribution. Inulit ko, para alam mo kung kanino mo ibibigay ang trabaho. Very good example. Very good example. Kunyari, money matters. Pera ang pinag-uusapan. O question, kung pera ang pinag-uusapan, pwede mo ba yan dalhin sa engineering department? No. Pwede mo ba yan dalhin sa nurses, IT department? No. Pwede mo ba yan dalhin sa accounting department? Yes. So kung alam mo ang itsura ng organization mo, alam mo kung anong ginagawa ng bawat isa, alam mo din kung kanino mo ibibigay ang trabaho. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. So ulitin natin, ha, what is the purpose of the organizational structure? For work distribution. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Now, but always remember, before you can create the organizational structure, of course, you need nurses the elements. You need nurses the elements of an organizational structure. At ulitin natin, pag sinabi natin elements, ibig sabihin, is it a requirement? Pag sinabi natin elements, is it a requirement? Yes. Is it necessary? Yes. Should it be complete? Yes. And what are the elements of your organizational structure. Number one, nurse, is what we call as the levels of authority. Number one, you have the levels of authority. Unang tanong, how many levels of authority do we have? Question, how many levels of authority do we have? Nako, Diyos ko, wala na ako nakausap. Ulitin natin. Pag sinabi natin authority, authority, authority. What is again authority? May posisyon o wala? Meron. Formal, informal? Formal. At ilang level ang formal mo? 3. So therefore, how many levels of authority do we have? 3. What are the 3 levels of authority? What are your 3 levels of authority? Top, middle, first. Now my question is, do we always need to have 3 levels of authority? Sabi natin, if we're talking about elements, nurse, are requirements. This is necessary. It should be complete. And accordingly, there are 3 levels of authority. You have your top, middle, first. My question is, do we always need to have 3 levels of authority? Yes or no? Question, do we always need to have 3 levels of authority? Yes or no? No! Nurses, no. It will always depend on the anong situation? Situation. Hayop ka. Hindi ka nakapag-move on, buwisit ka. Anong situation? Sige nga, saan ka nakakita? Iba-ibang sitwasyon nyo. Nag-iibang itsura ng organization mo. Akalain mo, yung organization nyo flexible. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So it's not situation. It will always depend on the size of the organization. Inuulit ko, it will always depend on the size of the organization. So meaning, pwede bang isang level lang? Top level lang, tapos top na lahat? Pwede ba? Yes. Pwede bang nurses, pwede bang top, middle, and first? Pwede. Pwede bang top and first lang? Pwede. It will always depend on the size of the organization. Nagkakaintindihan. Ano lang ibig sabihin ng levels of authority mo? Ang ibig sabihin nito, dapat may boss. Dapat may boss. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Okay? In short, tingnan mo to. Nurses, top level staff na lahat. Very good example. Very good example in a single proprietorship. Question, in a single proprietorship, ilan ang may-ari? In a single proprietorship, ilan ang may-ari? Isa. So isa ang boss, staff na lahat, nagkakaintindihan. O question, pwede bang top level lang tapos staff na lahat? Yes or no? Yes. Pwede bang top and first lang? Yes. Pwede bang top, middle, and first? Yes. Inulit ko, it will always depend on the size of the organization. Again, ano lang ang ibig sabihin ng first element mo na levels of authority? Ang ibig sabihin lang nito, dapat may boss. Dapat may boss. O question, may nakita ka na bang organization? Walang boss. Member lahat. Pwede ba yon? No, laging may boss. Pero yung dami ng boss mo, yung level ng boss mo, depende na kung gaano kalaki yung organization. O for example, this one, top level staff na lahat. O question, may level pa rin ba? May level pa rin ba? Yes. So meaning, you were still able to meet the first element, which is the levels of authority. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Do you get me? O asa na yung iba? Ba't yung iba naka-off cam? Itigil na natin to. Itigil na natin. Sabi ko sa inyo, tulungan nyo ang inyong sarili. Nagkakaintindihan. I want you to be able to focus. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag tayo sa levels of authority. Ulitin natin. How many levels of authority do we have? 3. Ulitin natin. Do we always need to have 3 levels of authority? No. It will always depend on the size of the organization. Nurses. Now, another nurses element that we have are what we call as the lines of communication. Another is what we call as the lines of communication. Now, what are lines of communication? Always remember, if we're talking about the lines of communication, there are actually two lines of communication that we usually see in an organization. And what are these lines of communication? One, nurses, is what we call your solid line of communication. One is what we call your solid line. And another one is what we call as the broken or the dotted line of communication. So there are two lines of communication that we usually see in an organizational structure. One is what we call the solid, and the other one is what we call as your broken line of communication. So let's start off with a solid line of communication. Question: what does a solid line of communication represent? Direct or indirect relationship? Direct. So meaning, if it is a direct relationship, meaning, do you have a superior subordinate relationship? Yes. Question: if there is a superior subordinate relationship, ang tanong, pwede ka bang utos-utusan? If there is a superior subordinate relationship, question, pwede ka bang utos-utusan? Yes. In short, itong nurse sa staff nurse mo, ang staff nurse mo, pwede bang utusan ng head nurse? Yes. Si head nurse, pwede bang utusan ng supervisor? Yes. Si supervisor, pwede bang utusan ng chief nurse? Yes. Because they have a solid line of communication. Nagkakaintindihan. Question, si chief nurse, pwede bang utusan ng head nurse? Yes or no? Again, si chief nurse, pwede bang utusan ni head nurse? No! Na makinig. We are now going to correct misconceptions. Dito ngayon papasok. Makinig. Dito ngayon papasok sa solid line of communication mo, one of the principle of management. And that is, nurses, the principle of unity of command. Dito papasok one principle of management, and that is the principle of unity of command. Now, what is unity of command? Pag sinabi natin unity of command, unity of command, unity of command, unity, united. Pag sinabi natin united, you are one. At pag sinabi natin unity of command, question, ano nag-iisa? Pag sinabi natin unity of command, ano nag-iisa? No, it's not, boss. Ayan na nga, unity of command. Huwag mo nang pahirapan yung sarili mong buwisit ka. O question, pag sinabi natin unity of command, ano nag-iisa? Command. In short, under the principle of unity of command, there's only one person. Again, under the principle of unity of command, there is only one person. There is only one person who could give orders. There is only one person who could give orders, and that is the immediate superior. Again, there is only one person who could give orders, and that is the immediate superior. Again, only one person who could give orders, and that is the immediate superior. So in short, ilan lang daw ang pwede mag-utos? Isa lang. At sino lang daw ang pwede mag-utos? Immediate. Wag lang superior. Why? Because always remember, kung ikaw ang staff, lahat yan superior mo eh. O, sino lang ang pwede mag-utos sa'yo? Immediate superior. Nagkakaintindihan. O ganito lang. Very nurses, very good example. Unang tanong, can you see a solid line connecting the chief nurse to the head nurse? Do you see a solid line connecting the chief nurse to the head nurse? Wala. Kanino nakakonect ang head nurse mo? Supervisor. So, sino lang ang pwede mag-utos kay head nurse? Supervisor. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag ba? Yes. Now, nurses, try to imagine now. Try to imagine. Sige, ganito lang kasimple. Try to imagine, itong supervisor mo, inutusan yung head nurse mo. Yung chief nurse mo, inutusan din ang head nurse mo. Contradicting ang utos nila. Question, pwede bang malito ang head nurse mo kung sinong susundin? Yes. Kaya ilan lang ang dapat nag-uutos sa'yo? Isa lang. At sino lang ang dapat nag-uutos? Immediate superior. Now, question is, why is there a common misconception? Kasi nurses, what you're trying to remember is the common practice. Now, always remember, the common practice is not exactly the ideal practice. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Anong common practice? Ang common practice kasi, si chief nurse, lahat inuutusan. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, pati orderly inuutusan, pati doktor inuutusan, pati watcher inuutusan. Minsan nga pati pasyente inuutusan. Do you agree, yes or no? Yes, nurses. So inuulit ko, ilan lang ang dapat nag-uutos sa'yo? Isa lang. At sino lang ang dapat nag-uutos? Immediate superior. That is the principle of unity of command. Dito din mababasok, under your solid line of communication, another principle of management. And that is the principle of scalar chain. Dito din babasok nurse. Sa nurses, sa iyong nurses, lines of communication, another principles of management. And that is the principle of scalar chain. Scalar chain, or what we call as the chain of command. Again, scalar chain, or what we call as the chain of command. Now, what does your chain of command tells you? According to the chain of command, nurse, you have to follow the hierarchical order. Again, under the chain of command, you have to follow the hierarchical order. Follow the hierarchical order. Pag sinabi natin follow the hierarchical order, ulitin natin magsama natin hierarchy, hierarchy, hierarchy. Dapat ba dito sunod-sunod? Yes. So dito ngayon babasok ang reporting relationship mo. Dito ngayon babasok ang reporting relationship mo. Under nurses, your nurses scalar chain, babasok ang reporting relationship. Under reporting relationship, kanino ka lang dapat nagre-report? Report. Hoy, may kausap ba ako? Naglalag ba ako? Sorry ah. Ayan na ang sinasabi ko, nagsisimula na naman ako. Buwisit talaga tong mga internet dito sa Maynila. Gigigil ako eh. Ulitin natin. Again, under reporting relationship, kanino ka lang magre-report? Immediate superior, nagkakaintindihan. So meaning, kung ikaw ang staff nurse, kanino ka magre-report? Head nurse. Si head nurse, kayo na magre-report? Supervisor. Si supervisor, kayo na magre-report? Chief nurse. Question, can the head nurse go directly to the chief nurse? No, that is not following scalar chain. They do not have a solid line of communication. Kaya ulitin natin, kayo ka magre-report? Kayo ka magre-report? Immediate superior. Pero what if nurse, ito ang lumabas sa'yo sa board exam. What if ito ang lumabas sa board? Now, ito po yung lumabas na ng board exam. At dahil lumabas na ito ng board exam, question, pwede pa rin ba itong lumabas sa board exam ninyo? Yes. Bakit? Dahil ang concept ng board exam ay paulit-ulit. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, nurses, what if you are the staff nurse? So you're the staff nurse and you were evaluated by the head nurse. Inulit ko, you're the staff nurse and you were evaluated by the head nurse. But you felt that the evaluation made by the head nurse is unfair. So you felt, nurses, that you were unfairly evaluated. Feeling mo, mali ang evaluation sa'yo ng head nurse mo. O question, kung feeling mo mali ang evaluation sa'yo ng head nurse mo, in short, problema mo ba ang head nurse mo? Yes or no? Problema mo na ba ngayon ang head nurse mo? Yes, my question now is, dahil problema mo ngayon ang head nurse mo, kanino ka na ngayon magre-report? Problema mong head nurse, kanino ka na ngayon magre-report? Supervisor. Very good! Para mali ang sagot mo. Kanino ka pa rin magre-report? Kay head nurse pa rin. You are not anymore following the scalar chain. So ano lang ibig sabihin ng scalar chain mo? Under the reporting relationship, here, you should never bypass your immediate superior. So meaning, kasi ho ng problema mong head nurse mo, kaaway mo ang head nurse mo, sasakalin mo ng head nurse mo, sasaksakin mo sa likod ng head nurse mo, ex mo ang head nurse mo, kanino ka pa rin magre-report? Kay head nurse pa rin. Kasi you always report to your immediate superior. That is the principle of scalar chain. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes, now, your answer will be different if the question in the board talks about complaints. Again, the answer, nurses, will be different if the question in the board talks about complaints. Now, nurses, so therefore, kung i-complain mo na ngayon ang head nurse mo, kanino mo ngayon ibibigay ang complaint? Ulitin natin. Sorry, naglalag ako. Ulitin natin. Nurses, inuulit ko ha, the answer will be different, nurse, if we're talking about complaints. Pag complaints ang pinag-uusapan. Question, kanino mo i-address ang complaint? Kung ikaw complain mo na ngayon ng head nurse mo, kanino mo ngayon i-address ang complaint? Kay supervisor. So this time, your answer will be different. Nagkakaintindihan ba? May kausap ba ako? So complaints sa pag-uusapan. You cannot give it to the head nurse. Why? Dahil yung complaint mo will just be a mere scrap of paper. Hindi niya yan papansinin. Ipamumunos niya lang sa puwet niya. So kanino mo ibibigay ang complaint? Kay supervisor. So if we're talking about complaints, the answer na will be different. Basta complaints yan. You address the complaint to the immediate superior. Again, you address the complaint to the immediate superior of the person you are complaining. Inuulit ko. You address the complaint to the immediate superior of the person you are complaining. So the answer now will be different. You address the complaint to the immediate superior of the person you are complaining. Now, makinig. Bakit mali ang sagot mo sa akin kanina? Kasi nurses, kanina, kaya mali ang sagot mo nung tinatanong ko sa iyo ang report, ang iniisip mo na kagad complain. Am I correct? Am I correct? Yes! Yan yung sinasabi kong problema ninyo. Hindi nyo sinasagot yung tanong. Naging asyumera ka na namang hayop ka. Kaya lagi kang nurses na luloko ng jowa mo. Marupok kang hayop ka. Nagkakaintindihan. Inuulit ko, sa board, bawal gumawa ng kwento. Kung ano lang ang tanong, yun lang ang sinasagot. E ang tanong ko kanina, kanino ka magre-report? Ang nasa isip mo, complain. Am I correct? Yes or no? Yes. So in the board, be careful. Huwag kang sagot ng sagot. Sa board exam, bawal ang excited. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Basahin mo munang maigi if the question is about reporting or about complaints. So therefore, kung ang ikaw complain mo ngayon yung supervisor mo, kanino mo ngayon i-address complaint? Kung ikaw complain mo supervisor, kanino mo i-address ang complaint? A chief nurse. You cannot address the nurses. You cannot give the complaint to the head nurse. Why? Kasi yung kino-complain mo, boss niya eh. Pwede niya bang pagalitan yung boss niya? Hindi. So kayo na mo ibibigay ang complaint to the immediate superior of the person you are complaining. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag po tayo. Yes. Sulitin natin ha. If we're talking about nurses, solid line of communication. What does again a solid line of communication represent? Direct or indirect? Direct. Again, is it a superior subordinate relationship? Yes. Pwede ka bang utos-utusan? Yes. Pero ilan lang ang pwede mag-utos sa'yo? Isa lang. At sino lang ang pwede mag-utos sa'yo? Immediate superior. Kanino ka lang magre-report? Immediate superior. Pero kanino ka magko-complain? Kanino ka magko-complain? Immediate superior of the person you are complaining. Again, kanino ka magko-complain? Again, kanino ka magko-complain? Immediate superior of the person you are. Huwag kayo sa akin sumagot ng immediate superior lang. Magkakamali ka na naman, sa reporting lang yun applicable. Kanino ka magko-complain? Immediate superior of the person you are complaining. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag na tayo. Maliwanag ha? We are correcting misconceptions. Now, the reason ko ba't hindi mo ito naiintindihan, the reason why you were not able to understand your LM, kasi yung nurses prof nyo, yung CI nyo, hindi kino-connect yung concepts. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. So ngayon, i-connect na natin bawat isa para pagdating ng board, mas madali sa'yo, paikutin ka man, kayang-kaya mong sagutan. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, so let's now proceed with the broken line of communication. What does a broken line of communication represent? Direct or indirect relationship? Indirect. Pag sinabi natin indirect, question, is there a superior subordinate relationship? Is there a superior subordinate relationship? Wala. So therefore, if there is no superior subordinate relationship, pwede ka bang utos-utusan? Question, pwede ka bang utos-utusan? No. O for example, this one. You see, for example, a broken line between the medical doctor and the staff nurse. So in short, ang doktor mo, pwede bang utos-utusan ng head nurse mo? O head nurse, total naman wala tayong masyadong ginagawa ngayon. Pwede bang ikaw gumawa itong report ko at kailangan ko yan mamaya sa meeting ko with the medical director? Pwede ba yon? No. Si doktor, pwede bang utos-utusan ng staff? Uy, staff nurse, total naman wala tayong masyadong pasyente. Pwede bang ikaw gumawa nitong prescription ko? Pipirman ko mamaya. Pwede ba yon? Hindi. Anong gusto kong tandaan ninyo? O makinig, tingnan yung screen ko. This is what I want everybody to remember. Always remember that the organization of nurses is different from the organization of doctors. In short, utang na loob, bes. Iba ang organization natin mga nurse, iba ang organization ng mga doktor. In short, doctors are not your boss. Again, uulitin ko, doctors are not your boss. Mga busabos, nagkakaintindihan ba? Nurse, makinig sa akin. This is what I want everybody to understand. Always remember, nurse, we have already deviated from the idea. We have already departed from the idea that we are handmaids of doctors. Before kasi, ang perception, tayo are only handmaid of doctors. In short, pag sinabing handmaid ka, ibig sabihin kanang kamay ka, alalay ka, katulong ka, meaning isa kang alipin. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Maliwanag. At iniwan na po natin yung konsepto na yon. Hindi na po tayo isang alipin. At sabi nga ng sibigat kultura mo, social studies, araling panlipunan, hekasi mo, ilang klaseng alipin nga meron tayo? Sabi ng social studies mo, ilan ang klase ng alipin? Ilan ang klase ng alipin na meron sa Pilipinas? 2. Ano yung 2 klaseng alipin? Aliping sagigilid at aliping namamahay. Mali kayo. Hindi kayo updated. 3 na po ang klase ng alipin. Aliping sa gigilid, aliping namamahay, at alipin mo kahit hindi batid. Hayop ka. Pag gwapo si Doc, automatic. Alipin ka ni Doc kahit hindi batid. Kilala kitang buwisit ka. Lahat ng sabihin sa'yo ni Doc, yes Doc. Hayop ka talaga. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Inuulit ko ha. Nurses, iniwan na natin ang konsepto na yon. We are not anymore handmaids. Why? Because now, we are already nurses. Again, we are already independent. Why? Kaya nga meron na tayong sariling organization. So doctors are not your boss. Kaya ulitin natin. Again, pwede ka bang utos-utusan ng doktor? No. Except, alam ko yung tumatakbo sa isip nyo. Except nurse, if these are doctor's order pertaining to patient care. Again, except if these are doctor's order pertaining to patient care. Again, except if these are doctor's order pertaining to patient care. If these are doctor's order pertaining to patient care, question, do you need to follow? Yes. Why? Because that is included in your job description. That is included in your scope of nursing practice under your RA 9173. Okay? Under the scope of nursing practice, this includes nurses following doctor's order that are oral, topical, parenteral. But question is, outside of your scope of nursing practice, outside of your job description, question, do you need to follow? No. Why? Because doctors are not your boss. Sino lang ang boss mo? Ang boss mo lang, nurse, ay yung nandoon lang sa loob ng iyong organization. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. So meaning, kung itong doktor mo ay consultant, question, pwede niya bang utusan ang resident niya? Yung consultant, pwede mo utusan yung residente? Yes. Yung resident, yung intern. Yes. Yung intern, yung clerk. Yes. But not the nurse. Because we have a separate organization. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. Maliwanag? Yes. So therefore, if you see a broken line, what type of relationship do we have? The only relationship that we have is said to be a coordinated relationship. Again, the only nurses relationship that we have is said to be a coordinated relationship. Meaning, doctors and nurses, do they just coordinate with one another? Do we just coordinate with one another? Yes, but doctors are not your boss. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo, ha? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, the last element now, nurse, that we have is what we call a sure span of control. The last element, nurse, is what we call as the span of control. Now, what is span of control? Pag sinabi natin span of control are the number of workers. Again, these are the number of workers that directly report to a superior. Again, these are the number of workers that directly report to a superior. Number of workers that directly report to a superior. Please underline the word directly. Lagyan mo ng underline. Lagyan mo ng underline. Please underline the word directly. Lagyan mo ng highlight. Lagyan mo ng highlight. Lagyan mo ng underline. Lagyan mo ng highlight. Lagyan mo ng box. Lagyan mo ng box. Bilugan mo. Bilugan mo. Guhitan mo. In short, burahin. Hayop ka. Utu-utu ka. Lahat ng sinabi ko, ginawa mo, edi yung sinulat mo, nabura din, buisit ka. O, ibig sabihin, nurse, is it important? Yes or no? Is it important? Yes, nakikita ko yung iba mga hayop yan. Nurses, guhitan mo, aba ginuhitan. Bilugan mo, aba binilugan. Highlight, hinighlight din. Hayop ka, nabura yung sinulat mong hayop ka. Ulitin natin. Ibig sabihin, is it important? Yes or no? Yes, nurses. Ulitin ko ha. These are the number of workers that directly report to a superior. Or, these are the number of workers, or these are the number of workers that a superior handles. Or, these are the number of workers that a superior handles. Number of workers that a superior handles. Ibig sabihin, ito daw ba ang dami na hawak ng isang superior? Yes or no? Yes! O, very good example. O, tingnan niyo yung screen nyo. Let's go back to this organizational structure. Let's go back to this structure. O, tingin maigi. Tanong, ilan lahat ang hawak ng chief nurse mo? Bilangin mong maigi. Bilangin mong maigi. Ilan lahat ang hawak ng chief nurse? Bilangin mong maigi. Ilan lahat ang hawak ng chief nurse? O, sige. May sumagot ng 8. Sige, ulitin natin. Nurses, anong pina-underline ko? O, sumagot kang hayop ka. Anong pina-underline ko? Directly. O, tanong, ilan ang directly hawak ng chief nurse mo? 2 lang. So therefore, ilan lang ang span of control niya? 2. Itong supervisor na to. Itong supervisor na to, 3. Itong supervisor na to, 3. In short, if we're talking about span of control, ano 2.5? Sino sumagot ng 2.5? Paano nagkaroon ng 2.5 na hawak yung supervisor mo? Hayop to, may nakikitang hindi natin nakikita. O, ulitin natin. Ilan ang hawak nila? 3. So therefore, ilan ang span of control? 3. So therefore, if we're talking about span of control, meaning, is it only limited? Yes or no? Pag sinabi natin span of control, is it only limited? Yes. Kaya nga tinawag na span of control. Ibig sabihin, ito lang ang lawak na kaya niyang hawakan. Hindi niya pwedeng hawakan to lahat. Pag hinawakan niya yan lahat, hindi niya yan mamamonitor. Do you agree? Do you agree, yes or no? Yes. So, itin natin. Pag sinabi natin span of control, what is against span of control? Number of workers. Ulitin natin. What is span of control? Number of workers. Pero nung word, ang tatandaan? Directly. So again, is it only limited? Yes. So ulitin natin ha, para mabuo ang structure ng organization mo. Do you need the elements? Yes or no? Yes. And what are again the elements? Number 1? Number 1? What is the first element? Levels of authority. Ulitin natin. How many levels of authority do we have? 3. Again, do we always need to have 3 levels of authority? No, it will always depend on the size of the organization. Second element, you have your lines of communication. Again, what are the 2 lines of communication that we usually see? Solid and broken. Pag sinabi natin solid, direct or indirect? Direct. Is it a superior subordinate relationship? Yes. Pag sinabi natin broken, direct or indirect? Indirect. What type of relationship do you have? Coordinated. And the last, you have your span of control. Anong nurses? Anong nga ulit ang span of control? Number of workers. Pero anong word ang tatandaan? Directly. Nagkakaintindihan. So meaning, if you're going to establish nurses your organizational structure, all of these elements should be present. Pero, hindi pa po tayo dito natatapos. Why? Because you still need to decide the form of organizational structure that you're going to use. And I'm going to discuss that tomorrow. Kasi magpo-4:30 na. Mabibitin po ako. I would like to rest first before I nurses continue with my lecture ng 5 o'clock. So again, bukas, Again, we are going to continue with our discussion. So tatapusin natin sa organizing, and then we're going to proceed with directing and controlling. After that, we're going to proceed with your favorite subject. Ano yon? Research. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Uy, mind you, hindi ako nagbibiro. Research is easier to answer in the board rather than LM. Hindi ako nagbibiro. Sa research, nurses, basta hawak mo ang kapangyarihan, kaya mo doon kahit isang tingin lang. Sa LM, kahit may hawak kang kapangyarihan, mag-a-analyze ka pa rin. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Oh, nurses, hindi ka ba lang sa akin ngayon naniniwala? Pero nurses, by the time na bibigay ko sa iyong kapangyarihan, may kita mong totoo ang sinasabi ko. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Oh, very good example. Makinig sa akin. Isa sa problema nyo sa research is the identification of the independent and dependent variable. Do you agree? Yes. Question, nagtatagal ka ba dyan? Yes. Nauubos ba oras mo dyan? Yes. Question, gusto niyo ba yung mga tipong isang tingin lang, alam mo agad yung sagot? Yung babasahin mo lang, pagkabasa mo, dependent. Gusto mo ba yon? Yes or no? Yes. So bibigyan ko kayo dyan ng kapangyarihan. Isa ba, nurses, na problema yung sa research? Given nurses a statement of the problem, given the title of a research, you have to identify the type of research design that is used. Ito yung maluka-luka ka na. Kung ang pipiliin mo by nurses, exploratory, experimental, o nurses descriptive. Kaya tuloy pag hindi mo alam ang sagot, ang lagi mo sagot, kwasay. Kilala kitang hayop ka. Nagkakaintindihan. Now, I'm going to teach you, nurse, the easiest way on how you're going to answer this type of questions. Isa pang problema yung sa research, at halos hindi din po nawawala sa board exam, is your inferential statistics. Ito yung sila ANUVA, chi-square, t-test, question. Nanguhula ka ba dyan? Yes. O question, gusto mo bang matapos ng karir mo sa panguhula? Yes. Bilang hindi naman Rudy Baldwin ang pangalan mo. Do you agree? Yes. So bibigyan ko kayo ng kapangyarihan. At inuulit ko ha, ibabato ko ang kapangyarihan. Anong gagawin? Sasaluhin. Saluhin mo ng bonggang, bongga. Ilagay agad sa utak. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Maliwanag? Maliwanag? Any question? Wala? Sige. Kung walang tanong, I will end this session for today. I will see you next meeting tomorrow. And then after which, nurses, we are going to continue with our discussion. Sige. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.